I didn't buy the land to make a statement. I bought it because it was cheap, isolated, and big enough that nobody could tell me what to do. 1,500 acres of dry hills, scrub trees, and a narrow river slicing through it like an afterthought. The listing had been sitting for years. No utilities. No road access except for a narrow private bridge that technically wasn't even included, just historically used. That phrase should have been a warning, but to me it sounded like freedom. The seller was eager. Too eager. He barely negotiated, just wanted it gone. When I asked why, he shrugged it off. Said something about complicated neighbors and shared access misunderstandings. I didn't push. I've learned that when land is this cheap, you either walk away or accept that you'll figure out the problem later. I chose later. The bridge sat at the edge of the property line like something forgotten. Old wood reinforced with rusted steel beams, just wide enough for a single truck. It crossed the river at its narrowest point, connecting the paved road to the land beyond, which, as I later discovered, included not just my acreage, but an entire quiet neighborhood tucked into the hills behind it. An HOA neighborhood. At first, I didn't even realize they were there. The terrain hides things well. You crest a hill and suddenly there are houses, clean, uniform, carefully spaced. Perfect lawns in a place where grass shouldn't grow. It looked like a secret community, sealed off from the rest of the world. And the only way in or out was that bridge. My bridge. I didn't make a big deal of it at first. I had surveys done, boundaries confirmed. The paperwork was clear, the land beneath the bridge and the structure itself were part of my purchase. There was no easement listed, no recorded right-of-way. Just silence where something important probably should have been. For a few weeks, nothing happened. I camped out there, started planning what I wanted to build. Maybe a cabin. Maybe something bigger. I liked the idea of disappearing out there, doing things on my own terms. Then the first car stopped. It was a white SUV, spotless, the kind of vehicle that doesn't belong on dirt roads. The driver rolled down her window and smiled, the kind of smile people use when they're about to tell you something they assume you already agree with. "Hi there," she said. "Just wanted to let you know this is a private access bridge for residents." I remember leaning against the fence post, looking at her like she'd just told me the sky was green. "No," I said. "It's mine." She blinked. Not confused, offended. Like I'd broken some unspoken rule. "That's not possible," she said. "This bridge has always been ours." "Not anymore." That was the moment everything changed. Part 2. The HOA didn't come at me all at once. At first, it was polite. Emails, letters, even a neatly printed welcome packet someone left wedged into my gate. They spoke in soft language: community cooperation, shared access, long-standing understanding. It all sounded reasonable if you ignored one thing: none of it was legally binding. I had a lawyer review everything. He didn't even hesitate. "They don't have an easement," he told me. "If the title is clean, that bridge is yours. They've just been using it because no one stopped them. And now." He gave me a look that was half warning, half amusement. "Now they will care." He was right. The tone shifted fast. Within a week, the polite emails turned into firm requests. Then demands. They insisted the bridge was critical infrastructure for their community. Emergency vehicles, deliveries, daily commuting, everything depended on it. I didn't argue that point. I just pointed out that it wasn't my responsibility. That's when they tried to assert authority they didn't have. They sent notices claiming I was interfering with established access. They referenced HOA rules as if those applied to me. They didn't seem to understand, or maybe didn't want to, that I wasn't part of their system. I was outside it. Completely. The first real confrontation happened on a Saturday morning. I was marking out a section near the bridge, planning to reinforce the structure before bringing in heavier equipment. A small group approached 3 people, all with that same controlled frustration. One of them introduced himself as the HOA president. "We need to resolve this immediately," he said. I nodded. "Okay. What's your proposal?" He seemed relieved, like he thought I was about to fold. "You'll sign an agreement granting permanent access to residents. In return, we'll handle maintenance costs." I almost laughed. "You mean I give you legal rights to my property, and you pay to maintain something you already depend on? It's a fair compromise." "No," I said. "It's not." That's when the friendliness disappeared completely. "You're putting dozens of families at risk," he snapped. "You can't just cut off access." "I haven't cut anything off." "But you could." There it was. The real fear. I looked past him, toward the houses hidden beyond the hills. "You built an entire neighborhood with one way in and out," I said. "And you didn't make sure you actually owned that access." He didn't answer. Because he couldn't. Part 3. I didn't block the bridge right away. That would have escalated things too quickly. Instead, I did something simpler. I put up a sign. "Private property. No trespassing. Access by permission only." It wasn't aggressive. It was factual. That alone caused chaos. Residents started stopping, taking pictures, calling someone, probably the HOA board. Within days, I noticed more traffic, more hesitation. People weren't sure what they were allowed to do anymore. That uncertainty was powerful. The HOA responded by trying to pressure me legally. They filed complaints, attempted to involve the county, even hinted at pursuing eminent domain. That one made me pause, not because it was likely, but because it showed how desperate they were getting. My lawyer wasn't concerned. "Eminent domain for a private HOA road," he said. "Highly unlikely. They'd need government backing, and even then, it's a long shot." So I held my ground. Then came the turning point. A delivery truck refused to cross the bridge. I watched the whole thing from a distance. The driver got out, read the sign, made a call, then turned around and left. Whatever instructions he got, they didn't include risking a trespassing issue. That single moment did more than any argument could. It made the situation real. Suddenly, it wasn't theoretical anymore. It wasn't about paperwork or old assumptions. It was about daily life being disrupted. And it was just the beginning. Part 4. They tried to negotiate again, but this time, the tone was different. Less authority, more urgency. "We're willing to compensate you," the president said. I let him talk. They offered money, maintenance, even partial land swaps. It was clear they were scrambling for solutions that should have been figured out years ago. "What you're asking for," I said finally, "is permanent access across my land. That has value. A lot of it. We understand that." "No," I said. "I don't think you do. Because if they did, they would have secured it before building an entire community behind it." I made them an offer. Not unreasonable, but not cheap either. Enough to reflect the leverage I held. They didn't like it. But they didn't walk away. Because they couldn't. Part 5. In the end, the bridge taught them something they should have known from the start: control matters. You can build perfect houses, write strict rules, create the illusion of order, but if you overlook one critical detail, the whole system can unravel. I didn't set out to trap anyone. I just bought land. They were the ones who built their lives around something they didn't own. And when they finally realized that, it was already mine. The quiet didn't last long. After that first confrontation, word spread fast through their neighborhood. I could feel it without even seeing them: cars slowing down near the bridge, people watching from a distance, the kind of attention that builds before something breaks. They started small. Letters, mostly. Printed, formal, carefully worded to sound cooperative while still trying to assert control. They kept using phrases like shared usage and historical access, as if repeating it enough times would turn it into a legal fact. It didn't. I had everything checked again just to be sure. Survey maps, title reports, county records. Every document pointed to the same simple truth: the bridge sat entirely within my property lines. No easement. No agreement. No hidden clause waiting to surprise me later. Just ownership. That's when I realized something important: they weren't operating on facts. They were operating on assumption. For years, maybe decades, no one had challenged their access. So they stopped questioning it themselves. It became invisible. Permanent, in their minds. Until I showed up. The next interaction wasn't friendly at all. It happened early in the morning when I was unloading supplies. A black pickup pulled up fast, too fast for the dirt road, kicking up dust like a warning. The driver stepped out before the engine even fully stopped. "You're the one causing problems?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. I just kept working, slow, deliberate, making him wait. "Depends what you call a problem," I said finally. He didn't like that. "This bridge isn't yours to mess with." "It is, actually." He stepped closer, trying to intimidate, but it didn't land the way he expected. People like him rely on certainty, on the idea that if they sound confident enough, you'll back down. I wasn't interested in backing down. "You think you can just shut off access to an entire community," he said. "I haven't shut anything off." "But you will." There it was again. Not anger, fear, disguised as anger. I wiped my hands and looked straight at him. "You all built back there," I said, pointing past the hills. "Without securing the one thing you needed most." "That's not my mistake." He didn't have a response for that. None of them ever did. Instead, he left with a threat that wasn't really a threat. Something about lawyers, about consequences, about how this wouldn't end well for me. I'd heard it all before in different forms. The difference this time was that I knew exactly how much leverage I had. And so did they. By the end of that week, things escalated in ways I hadn't expected. The HOA board sent a formal notice claiming I was interfering with essential access infrastructure. It looked official, stamped and signed, but my lawyer tore it apart in minutes. "They're bluffing," he said. "Trying to create pressure where they don't have authority." "Will it work?" I asked. He smiled slightly. "That depends on you." It didn't. I responded once, clearly and directly. No long explanations, no back and forth. Just a statement: the bridge was private property, access was not granted, and any future use would require a formal agreement. After that, I stopped engaging. That's when the situation started affecting their daily lives. At first, it was subtle. Delivery services hesitating. Rideshare drivers canceling trips. Contractors refusing to cross without written permission. Every small inconvenience added up, slowly turning into something bigger. I watched it happen piece by piece. A moving truck parked at the edge of the bridge for nearly an hour before turning around. A landscaping crew unloading equipment and carrying it across by hand because they didn't want to risk driving over. A school bus stopping short, the driver stepping out to read the sign like it might change if he looked long enough. None of this was dramatic on its own. But together, it changed everything. Because for the first time, the people living back there had to confront a reality they'd never considered: that their access wasn't guaranteed. It depended on me. And I hadn't even done anything yet. That's what made it worse. The HOA tried to regain control by organizing a meeting. Not with me at first, but among themselves. I heard about it through one of the contractors who'd been turned away. Apparently, it didn't go well. Arguments. Blame. Questions no one could answer. Who approved the development? Why wasn't the access secured? How did this happen? The answers were buried somewhere in paperwork from years ago, probably ignored at the time because everything just worked. Until it didn't. Eventually, they reached out again. This time, the tone had shifted. No more authority, no more assumptions. Just urgency. We need to talk, the message said. I didn't respond right away. I let it sit. Not to play games but because timing mattered now. They were starting to understand the situation, and rushing that realization wouldn't help. When we finally met again, it wasn't on their terms. It was on mine. Same place as before near the bridge, on my side of the property line. The president showed up, but this time he wasn't alone. 2 others came with him, quieter, more observant. The kind of people who handle numbers and consequences rather than appearances. We're prepared to discuss compensation, he said, skipping any pretense. I nodded slightly. Good. He hesitated, just for a second. We'd like to reach a reasonable agreement for continued access. There it was. Not a demand. A request. It took them long enough. What you're asking for, I said, is permanent use of something you don't own. That's not small. We understand that. I looked at them, really looked this time. The confidence was gone. In its place was calculation, and behind that, concern. Do you? I asked. Because if they truly understood, they would have handled this years ago. Now, they were dealing with it on my terms. And that changed everything.